Welcome to Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and today is the third episode with our wonderful guest who is talking about the pivotal moments that make them the leader they are today. I really hope you enjoy the episode. I can't wait to find out what's in store. Welcome to today's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm delighted to welcome back David Charlton, who's sports psychologist extraordinaire. And I have to say, David, the last two episodes and the chats that I've had with you have been absolutely fascinating. I'm really excited about whatever it is we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and we're saving the best till last, eh?
always. So look, it's been an amazing couple of episodes so far, and of course we're keen to keep on that exciting theme. And we ended last week talking about that vulnerability piece, and of course that does lean into those pivotal moments, which are often those challenges that we face in life, and how we handle those, the things that we reveal and learn about ourselves along those journeys. So with that in mind, I would love to just dig straight in and say, do share some of your pivotal moments.
Right. Okay. So I suppose we're smiling, and which is it's a bit of a tough one. This is in some respects. So yeah, I'm going to go back to 2007. My wife had got diagnosed with cancer, and yeah, basically she died in November of 2008. So we had 15 months together. And I would say when I look back at when you talk about pivotal moments, that 15 months was well ridiculously stressful to say the least. It was an absolutely awful time. But on the theme of some of the themes that we've talked about, like personal leadership and like taking responsibility, there was no hiding place. I mean, essentially, the first day that she went into hospital, she had 3 brain tumors. She'd collapsed, and when we heard the news about the brain tumors and what was going on, it was just shock. But at the same time, it was like, well, whoa, life does go on here. How are we going to actually deal with that? And I'd never, I think prior to something like that happening, I've got to be honest, I probably shied away from like taking responsibility on occasions. So that was the hardest lesson of them all, that I needed to take responsibility, to take care of her, take care of myself, and then like forward. I am a future thinker, and I felt guilty for a period, but during that 15-month period, I was well aware that at some point I was going to be like left by myself, and I was going to have a life to lead. I think I took 3 months off work to try and process what was going on. We thought she was only going to live for about that period of time, in all honesty, but it because of the medical support, it continued for longer. So I suppose, so in that 15-month period, I ended up thinking about my career at a later date, and I was like, right, if I'm going to be around, I'm going to do something that I really want to do going forward. I'm not just going to continue in the travel industry as I was. So I did an Open University course. It was just a very easy, basic, like understanding psychology course, just to see if the brain was still working after a big gap in education. And it worked slowly, but it worked. I then went on and did another one, and so I got the taste for psychology at that point. And then, so I think that was during that, as I said, that 15-month period. She died. I then, I think it was the June of 2009, no, 2010. So a further 6-7 months after she died, I then actually got made redundant from my role. So then it was like stick or twist time. It was like, right, do you take the responsibility that you said you were going to, and go for that fresh start, or do you continue in a field that you're in? So it was 2009. So in 2009, I made that the gutsy decision of going into full-time education with a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds doing a degree, which was absolutely, it was gruesome. You're grieving. Your support circle from your workplace wasn't there. Your mates, who blokes don't really talk about their feelings very well, they're not the best listeners. I'm generalizing here. It was like, it was really difficult. So you mentioned about mental toughness earlier. I don't know. I think why I'm drawn to mental toughness is probably linked to that whole period it was a couple of years really of deep, like, I'm saying dark times. It wasn't dark times because I met my now wife. But yeah, it was just very, very difficult. It tested my commitment. It tested my confidence. I took a risk by doing that. So I challenged myself. And certainly, as far as mental toughness goes, I've mentioned 3 C's there. There's another C involved in mental toughness. You've got control. It tested my emotions out and my sense of can do, if you like. So yeah, there we go.
Oh, goodness me. Well, look, first of all, so sorry to hear that, but thank you so much for being vulnerable with us today and sharing that story, because that just goes to show that even when you feel like when you are in your darkest moments, you're able to somewhere inside find that strength to make those choices that can then change your life forever for the future. And there's that sort of belief that perhaps had you not changed what you were doing, you may not have met your now wife, that you're with, if you were still in your old job and still in the travel industry, for example.
Yeah, most definitely. And I suppose if I look back at the journey of the degree, for starters, there was maybe me going down the psychology route was me trying to heal myself. I don't know. You often hear that with psychologists in some respects, but I learned an awful lot doing the degree. There were foundations. It wasn't really the stuff that was floated my boat. It was, as I say, it was foundations. It wasn't necessarily applying things to the real world, but I'd probably applied things more to myself during those times. But yeah, I can just remember like writing case studies and reports and essays and all this sort of stuff. And every time I had one, I was always second guessing myself and doubting myself. So yeah, if I was looking, I think going back, I would have trusted myself a lot more. But when I went on to do the master's degree in sports psychology, and then you've got to do a 2-year supervised practice period as well. So essentially it took me 7 years to get from A to B to fulfill that dream that I had, certainly when Alex was ill. Now, there was many a time when I wasn't sure whether I would see it through to the end. And I had a period where, so I did occupational psychology in my 3rd year of my degree, and I really loved it. I nearly went down that route of doing a master's in occupational psychology and then getting into, I suppose, being chartered as an occupational psychologist. But my heart ruled my head in the end. I felt like if I went down that route, there probably was going to be a steady income. But I don't think I would have experienced the sort of the entrepreneurial ups and downs had I done that. And I wouldn't have been following I suppose my true passion. Though, yeah, I am. That's always like a part of me, and I certainly wouldn't say never to potentially going down that route in future.
Oh, that's interesting because there are so many arms of psychology, if you like, and it's lovely to know that yes, of course, you've got the core bit that you're interested in now in terms of supporting high performing athletes and the fantastic work that you're doing there, but that you've got a different interest. So, maybe there's a master's or a doctorate or something coming in there with a piece of research, David, at some point.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. I've got 2 young kids now, so I'm not going to happen anytime soon. I can assure you. So, but certainly, that be it the degree, the masters, the supervised practice period, I think what that has done is really cultivate a level of self-awareness certainly for myself. And then I recognize now, from my work, essentially, that is what I'm trying to develop in a performer, in a coach, is self-awareness, so that they make better decisions under pressure. It's straightforward, simple as. But obviously that comes back to being honest with yourself, which we mentioned before. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to lead into the whole profiling, if you don't mind, in psychometrics,
of course,
we talked about earlier. So
yeah, please do.
So yeah, on my journey, as I alluded to, I was torn between sort of business and sport. So I got chartered as a sports psychologist, but still had the doubts, and probably spent a couple of years where I was trying to do a bit of everything. And I got qualified as a I3 profile practitioner, essentially. Now, so I3 profiling isn't a big sort of tool, if you like. How you have your Myers-Briggs and like a variety of different tools out there. So I3 it is a leadership profile, essentially a personality profile, and it's used a lot in the business space with executives and leaders. And I love it. I think this was 2016 when I looked at it. And what I like about it is its simplicity. When you do the report, it's just 3 pages. That's all. You've got a 1 page which tells you about 7 character traits, and then it lines them up from top to bottom in terms of what is your strength and what comes like automatic to you, down to the bottom, which like things you don't do. You've got things you've got to think about consciously. So it's a strengths-based approach. But the second page to it, I always go back to this a lot. So it's an environmental analysis, essentially, where it looks at task and social leadership and your preferences there. So yeah, I'll give you if I could draw, I would just imagine there's a cross. Obviously, people who are watching, I'll find this useful. So there's a cross there. So you've got social. So you'll have task at the top, social at the bottom. We'll have on this. It's difficult with the camera.
Just stay on your left or your right.
Yeah, we'll go on my right. We've got flexible, and on the other side, we've got routine. So it pinpoints where you're most comfortable, essentially. And for me, I'm not going to do it with my hands here. I'm social. So I'm about 70% of the way down there, social. and slightly on the routine side, but I do overlap into like the flexible side. And so, yeah, going back to self-awareness. So for myself, it really helped me recognize that I need to be around like people on a regular basis for me to thrive and have energy and to work well. And certainly, like going back to my like managerial days prior, I wouldn't have a clue about these sort of things. But obviously, yeah, there's people out there who are task leaders who are just numbers centric, focused. They're not going to lift their heads up in the morning at 9 o'clock and say hello. They're just going to have their heads down in their work, and that's fine. It's okay to be like that. But then you're going to have people who, if they're really social and if we go social and routine, like they just want to hang around like a small team essentially. Whereas the social flexible person is probably going to be more of a salesperson who enjoys meeting new people, is quite outgoing, and I can't think of the word. They're going to love being at conferences. It's going to give them energy in that. Yeah, networking and what have you. So I think what that taught me when you were going back to self-care is how different people need to look after themselves, the importance of the environment, and the way offices and the way, well, nowadays if you're working from home, how you go about your time and set your downtime up and all of these sort of factors. And that's without going on to psychometrics and the mental toughness psychometric.
I love that. A tenuous link, but actually it makes so much sense because whilst, a lot of these personality tests, these profiling tools, you can take or leave them, but some of them really are helpful. And it sounds like this I3 one that you've just shared about really does give some deeper insight in its simplicity, if that makes sense. Because once you receive your results for a particular profile, whatever it might be, you get to have time to reflect on what it says on the report, and then to reflect on what that means for you. Which is always really, really helpful. And I know the tool that I'm accredited in, which is team management profiling and all about preferences, you can then also opt to have somebody go through the report with you that's qualified and accredited in that particular tool to help that process of making sense of it.
Yeah, and I think that's where the magic happens in some respects. I know the third page on this I3 is simply like a summary of what you've seen on the first two pages, and it's generally the way it's done. It's not just spat out by the computer. There's a practitioner on the other end of it who personalizes that data for you. And I don't know. I'm not somebody who uses like psychometrics and profiling tools a huge amount these days. I prefer the personal like communication, if you like, but I do see the value in them. My worry is when they're sort of, 10, 15 pages long, that a lot of people just get to the third or fourth, fifth page and they just skim read them and they don't really get the value. Yeah. So like as you say, and as we're both saying, certainly having someone help you with that is so vital, because it's very easy to read these things and pick up the wrong messages as well from the wording.
Absolutely. You pick out the bits that jump out the page, if you like, don't you? And you don't sort of put it into the context of the bigger picture. I know years ago, having been profiled in something, I forget what it was at the time, there was this particular thing that came out of it and I got fixated on that. I was like, well, that's not me. And it took somebody to sort of go through it with me and point out that, you know, this is about the whole person, and perhaps how you may have been the younger version of you when you were less experienced. Now you're more experienced. You know, you're able to overcome that that piece that can be seen as a gap in your particular profile. So, you know, it was in the end irrelevant, you know, but it took somebody to have that conversation with me.
Yeah, most definitely. And our brains are wired to look at the negative, aren't they? I think if you look at what research, we have about 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and they say about 80% of those thoughts are negative. So straight away we're going to go into the, oh, I'm not like that, really.
Yeah.
So I'm not a practical doer. Nah, that's a load of rubbish, and get defensive, or we'll get into negative self-talk. Well, and obviously some people won't take responsibility, will they? They'll be like, this is a waste of time, and they'll throw it in the bin. Yeah. Whereas other people will get hung up on it, and they'll fixate on these negative things and forget about the fact that they're a big picture planner, and they're super motivational, and they're a social person, and all of the rest of it. We're all, nobody's perfect. We've all got our strengths, and
are we not both perfect, David? Are you trying to tell me something?
I'm afraid not.
Dang.
It's taken me a while to work that one out. But,
well, wouldn't it be boring world if we were all perfect and cardboard cutouts of each other? Goodness me. You know, I love the fact that we are messy human beings, and we all bring that fantastic uniqueness to our own stories and our own pivotal moments and our own discoveries and learnings about ourselves in those moments. And, you know, you've just shared two fantastic stories there. And, you know, thank you again in terms of the first story in being vulnerable and willing to share that with us. But it just goes to show that, you know, we have this incredible ability, even though we don't know it before we go through whatever the challenge is, to be able to pull ourselves out the other side and discover all these fantastic new things that we didn't know before we went in.
Yeah, and I think it's that curiosity piece there to curiosity, maybe like a can-do attitude to put yourself out there and be curious into the mix is the key ingredients there for any person who goes through a challenging time or a difficulty. One thing that springs to mind during that period, someone said to me when my wife died, the best thing you can do is like talk to someone like as quick as you possibly can. So I received some counseling, and I joined an organization called the Way Foundation. So that was, which I cannot recommend highly enough if anybody is in a similar situation where they've lost their wife. So the Way Foundation stands for like widowed, I think it's widowed and young. And what it was like a social network in a sense. So we would meet up once a month and go for a few drinks, have a meal, and just have a bit of a chat, really, more than anything else. You shared your stuff if you wanted to. If you didn't want to, then you talked about something completely different. And they did away days, they do holidays, and all sorts of different things. It was those two things were vital for me. And I suppose on the I don't want to go too far off track. Like on the subject of leadership similarly can be fraught with danger, with difficulty, and it can be a damn lonely place. So having those outlets, people you trust to be able to open up and talk, to learn about yourself, to be curious, all of that stuff is vital.
Oh, you're so right there, David. You know, it can be a very, very lonely place. And, you know, I come back to surrounding yourself with that right support, finding your tribe, if you like, finding those cheerleaders, finding the people that are going to hold you to account and help you move forwards, finding that great mentor, finding that great sponsor, finding that great coach, all of those fantastic different elements of the balanced support that you can get to help you move forwards, and not forgetting the importance of support outside of work in terms of leading your own life, and those friends and family that provide that vital support role as well. And as you just said, through the Way Foundation, you know, that new set of friends that you formed. And, you know, when we're going through these things and we're sharing those experiences, you know, quite often those bonds last for life. And it can be very powerful.
Yeah. No, you're right. They certainly can. I mean, certainly the foundation. I couldn't thank them enough for their help, to say the least. What was I going to say? There was something on the tip of my tongue. That's right. Actually, that, on this support piece, it reminds me. It takes me back to a podcast I did a while back. It was from a golf coach who works with some seriously good golfers, and his name was Andrew Nicholson. He said that everybody needs like a board of directors on their side, and similarly to you, where he was just saying, like, in that board, it might be like the imaginary sort of person they're striving to get to. It could be the real life person. It could be the family member, the mentor. But yeah, imagine yourself having your own board of directors to support and guide you. And yeah, that's stuck with me throughout, and that was about 2 years ago.
Oh, David, you know, you really hit struck a chord even with me just then, because I do talk about my support network as my personal board of directors. I love that expression, and I've been using that, I suppose, for about 3, nearly 4 years now, since I connected with my purpose. You know, and there are a few people that are in that inner circle, and I'll reveal a little secret now that you know, you're on that with me, because we have regular catch-ups and support each other in our business. It's about finding those people that are on your board, that are always there when you need them, that bring that fun and bring that expertise that you don't have yourself. You know, it's filling the gap so that together you're greater. You know, the sum of the two parts are greater than the singles that come together.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
Oh, fantastic. Look, thank you again so much for being vulnerable today and sharing your stories with us. What an amazing 3 episodes, and I'm a bit sad that this is the end of the 3rd episode, so that means we don't have another one straight away, but I do know that we will be chatting again on a podcast at some point in the not too distant future, because I know we won't be able to resist it.
No, you're damn right there. It will happen.
Wonderful. Well, look, thank you so much, David. It's been an absolute pleasure. As I say, your details will be released with this podcast episode in the show notes, so people will know exactly how to get hold of you should they require your fantastic support for things that they are finding a struggle with, whether that's in the high-performing sports space, or, as you rightly say, in terms of that leadership space, because it can be a complex and lonely place.
Well, thank you for including those details in the show notes. And again, thank you for listening to me waffle on and share my insights in the 3.
Oh, I do love a good bit of waffle. Wonderful. Thank you so much, David. I'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. This has been the 3rd episode and final episode for a little while anyway, with our guest, who shared their pivotal moments that make them the leader they are today. Again, I talk about uniqueness a lot. Every guest story and their pivotal moments, the challenges they faced, the issues they faced over the years to get to where they are now, and how they pulled themselves through all of that, makes them the leader they are today, and each one of those stories is unique and different. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with them and see what that meant for them. Now, once again, it's your turn to reflect on what you've heard today, see what resonates for you, and think about what that might mean for your leadership moving forwards. I'm Paula Eddie Wilcox, and I look forward to welcoming you back next time on Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Bye for now.